Between 100 and 120 infants die every year in the city of Milwaukee. By infants, we mean from the time of birth to their first birthday. It's a vulnerable period.
So vulnerable that 70 years ago, 1 in 5 infants in Milwaukee died before the age of 1. Now there are about 12 infant deaths per 1,000 live births.
Our infant mortality rate is very similar to other cities that have structures like Milwaukee, similar amounts of poverty, which we believe is very important, and similar characteristics in terms of how concentrated poverty is in our city.
Premature babies and low birth weights are a leading cause of infant mortality in Milwaukee. Another is SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome. And there are other physical and environmental causes during the child's first year.
If we're really going to have more impact on preventing premature and low birth weight babies, we actually have to start talking to parents well before they become parents. Issues include whether or not they've started smoking as teenagers or whether they've successfully stopped smoking before they became pregnant. Preparing for pregnancy through adequate nutrition, getting enough folate and other vitamins on board. Being pregnant when you're prepared to be pregnant, emotionally, financially. Once that happens, good prenatal care, and by that I mean going to the doctor within the first 3 months of pregnancy and continuing to go to a doctor or midwife through pregnancy, taking vitamins, having your weight checked, having the blood pressure checked, checking in on the social issues like drinking, tobacco, poverty, abuse. That is demonstrated to result in better birth outcomes, less low birth weight, less prematurity.
And Dr. Foldy adds, health insurance should be available to almost any woman who needs it through Badger Care, Medicaid, or Healthy Start, 3 state and federally funded programs that pay for prenatal care. Tamisha Davenport is taking part in a state-funded program within the Milwaukee Health Department which helps high-risk mothers and children. Her baby weighed 4 pounds at birth. The Milwaukee Family Project helps her in a variety of ways beyond health care.
So what I did is I kind of organized the care plan into some basic areas. Income would be one, and you can apply for W-2 for a few months. You've just had a baby, but after that I'm sure you'll want to work because you can make more than that. Resources is always important. Parenting, of course you're a new parent, and health care. Those all seem to be things that we talked about that were important to you. We've talked about income and housing. Those are important things. And the reason we put time into those is because if you have stable housing and a good income, you can be a better parent. And I'm sure you want, that for your children.
The Milwaukee Family Project was started in 1996 as a prevention project and an extension of another project called Prenatal Care Coordination. Prenatal Care Coordination takes care of pregnant women and then up to 60 days postpartum. And what they found is that program was really good for supportive parents with small vulnerable kids and for pregnancy, but that it really should continue longer. So the Milwaukee Family Project sees babies that have to be under 60 days old, and they can see them up to their 5th birthday. They see the mom, very intense home visits, so they try to visit every month for the first 6 months and then pretty frequently after that. And it's a global program that looks at really trying to help with the resilience of families, trying to get them into good medical care, into employment, be sure they get schooling, and their kids are cared for. So it's a unique program in that it's reimbursable, but it's long-time care. The one glitch is they have to be on Medicaid. So we've had some challenges with the change in the Medicaid system, but we're I think we're through that now with Badger Care. We have a caseload of around 50, and that may sound small, but that's the effort that this program puts in place, that a public health nurse has a very small caseload and can really visit frequently then and show a family some support, and they've really responded to that.
This family is taking part in another important health program that has done a great deal to reduce infant mortality: vaccinations, especially from birth to 2 years, but throughout the school years.
The three basic ones we all remember: the DTP vaccine against diphtheria, tetanus, and whooping cough, which is pertussis, polio, measles, mumps, rubella. But now we have vaccines for hepatitis B, chickenpox, a form of meningitis called vaccine is called Prevnar. We've also got a vaccine for Haemophilus influenza, which is something that affects infants and toddlers. That's another type of meningitis. Vaccines at the health department are free of charge. We don't charge anything for the shots or any kind of administrative fee. Most of our vaccines are given on a walk-in basis. You can call the local health center and find out what the hours are. Walk in, get your vaccines, all that you need. We mostly like to serve people who have no other source of health care. If you have a private physician, it's best to go to your private physician or a health clinic because you receive other services there. But we will serve anybody that comes to see us.
Rob says it's unfortunate that many people don't remember life without vaccines.
As with any medication, there's always the possibility of some type of reaction. But if people remember the diseases that they prevent, such as polio, which used to kill thousands of people every year, or measles, or whooping cough, all these diseases are still around. None of them has gone away. And without vaccinating kids, we could see epidemics of all these diseases, and they really are terrible, terrible diseases.
Tina Lucas White is making sure her 6-month-old son is getting the foods he needs to protect against health problems. It's the special supplemental food program called WIC for women, infants, and children. Infants born to WIC mothers weigh more and grow and develop better. It's offered at city health clinics and by other community groups. The WIC program provides certain foods from each of the 5 major food groups to supplement foods Tina buys and encourages regular health care for mother and baby.
We're missing the 6-month shots. We have the 2 months and the 4 months. He did. All right, so if you can bring the results back with you the next time you pick up, and I'll leave a reminder in the WIC book so that we can update our records to show if he's up to date or not. Have you started introducing the strained vegetables and fruits to him yet?
Yes,
How is he taking that?
he loves it.
Okay. So with each meal, try to offer a variety, okay, the vegetable, fruits, and also try to introduce him to a cup. He's at the age now where he can start. Oh, he's drinking from a cup? Okay.
Yes.
So at each meal, just 1 to 2 sips of the 100% juice or water.
Most babies are born healthy, and most stay that way. For many, there are more dangers in the first year than from prematurity or low birth rate.
One of the important things to deal with that group is to make sure families have safe conditions in which babies can play and also to sleep. Many people are not aware, the message hasn't really gotten out there, that putting almost every baby to sleep on their back to sleep idea with the face facing up, is safer than putting babies on their face or on their sides. It cuts the risk of sudden infant death syndrome many-fold.
In the Milwaukee Fetal Infant Mortality Review, 44% of the children were normally placed on their stomach to sleep. 92% were placed on their stomachs or sides on the day of death. While the infant mortality rates are dropping, Dr. Foley says there is still much room for improvement by the health department and the community.
We're emphasizing the need for planned pregnancies. We're emphasizing through our public education efforts the need for nutrition before pregnancy. And we are emphasizing extremely strongly the fatal interaction of tobacco products with pregnancy. Finally, we want everybody to know that virtually anybody who is pregnant should have access to some form of health insurance in this state.
There's a lot happening beneath the streets of Milwaukee. Among the things hidden in this world under the manholes are communication cables in 540 miles of underground conduit. The former Marshall Fields building at Plankinton, Wisconsin is the new home of the Convention and Visitors Bureau, among others. They called on the city of Milwaukee recently to help connect their new offices with the Midwest Express Center. The fiber optic cable between the two buildings is located in excess space in the city's underground conduit.
It's one of the good things about the Milwaukee economy. The city didn't do anything special on this. We just happen to have conduits that make it possible for a building like this to become hot wired for high tech.
The fiber optic connection was completed by the DPW Building and Fleet's communications section. The van providing the fiber optic fusion splicer allows its crews to splice cable twice as fast as the old method. This fiber is only 125 millionths of a meter in diameter, with an even smaller core in which the light transmission travels. The van provides a clean, environmentally conditioned space for proper fusion to take place. The city isn't the only one with underground conduit. A number of private companies install their communication needs underground as well.
The point, though, is that downtown Milwaukee is a well-wired, high-tech environment. That's why the 3rd Ward, downtown, the Lower East Side, these are all places where it's easy to attach a T1 line or the other kinds of high-tech lines that are needed, and that's why the Milwaukee metropolitan area is leading the state in tech development, which isn't always widely understood.
Communication needs through corner call boxes for police and fire departments prompted installation of the underground conduit over 100 years ago. Today, copper and fiber optic cable continues to provide secure connections to our police and fire stations, other municipal buildings, and remote sites, some 200 of them with data, voice, and video communication. Traffic controls and street lighting are among the many kinds of monitoring and control systems supported through the conduit system.
There's several major benefits. I think probably one of the most appealing is it hides the wires and cables and fiber optic communication that would look very messy. And partly it's just to make the place more aesthetically appealing. In addition, there's the benefit of it's safer. Cars can't hit it, as an example. It's pretty much impervious to weather conditions. So there's a lot of technical benefits of it as well. But I think it's that combination of both technical and aesthetic benefits that's led to the city's use of it and other entities.
Those other entities include such private companies as utilities, power companies, cable companies, all adding their own underground conduit, adding to the 1,500 miles of copper and fiber the city has in its underground communication network. Putting these cables underground does more than eliminate clutter and provide a secure pathway. There are many economic benefits as well.
Well, just looking at the network services that we provide to the police stations and the fire stations and the public works facilities, our costs, if we had to purchase those communication services, would probably be probably 10 times what we're currently paying for us to provide ourselves that service. The other issue is, I think, having this source of underground conduit facilitates private sector entities extending communication within the city at a much faster and much less expensive, from their perspective, ability to connect businesses. So it's kind of like there's an infrastructure that's available to the private sector at a very moderate cost, enabling them to provide higher speed communication services to businesses as well as residences. But I think the emphasis of fiber would be to business.
Private companies need an excavation permit and are required to restore the pavement to standards set by the city. While they usually install their own underground conduit, there are cases where they will use excess space in the city conduit.
On rare occasions, there's crossover. Some of their stuff will be in our underground conduit, especially in places where it's particularly expensive to do that, such as going under the freeway, going under rivers.
When they do share, they pay rent. Last year, private companies paid the city $300,000 for conduit leasing. That money helps in the effort to keep property taxes down and is expected to rise with the demand for data connections. While there are wires underground and wires overhead, many of the new technologies are wireless. But that shouldn't make Milwaukee's underground conduit system or its copper wire transmissions obsolete.
A lot of the wireless technologies are pretty slow in terms of the speeds of communications. So they're complementary as opposed to competing technologies in many ways, from what we've seen today. So there's differences in the technologies. I would see both flourishing. I expect lots more wireless technologies, the personal data assistants, those kinds of devices to be growing in popularity. But I think you'll still have most major business institutions and most sources of information, like Yahoo, will always have a ton of fiber coming into it and communicating that way because the amount of bandwidth. So while fiber will certainly continue to grow in importance because of data and potential future uses such as video conferencing and that, our copper infrastructure is probably going to be here for some time to come. Much of it's over 100 years old right now and still in use. So we would not anticipate that disappearing. The fiber more of a supplement and meeting new needs, while a lot of the old communication needs have not gone away.
Out of sight under the manholes of the city, but not out of mind. And the recent connection downtown illustrates Milwaukee government's ability to use its excess conduit space to link businesses efficiently and respond to consumer demand for data connections. The heavy snows of December created numerous problems for city sanitation crews and residents. Many garbage carts were overfilled and inaccessible. The melting snows revealed a serious problem in some areas of the city and brought about a warning from the Department of Neighborhood Services.
What we're doing today is starting to reach out more aggressively to the residents and asking them to play a greater role to solving the problem that we have here in the community. The snows in the winter, in December, have left us with a problem that we haven't seen in many years, which is an unprecedented accumulation of rubbish and debris. So what we're doing today is unveiling a new door hanger that will go out with all of our cleanup orders that is designed to get the message across to the residents that you need to play a role. Clean up the trash, starve a rat.
The yellow notice was a warning to residents to clean up garbage around their yard or face some severe penalties. Residents have 24 hours to clean up the mess in their yards after receiving the warning from a neighborhood services inspector. If it's not cleaned up, the city will send a crew to do the work and send a bill to the property owner. The average cost is $160.
This particular flyer provides guidance and directions. The first is warning, whereby we let residents know that there are problems in their areas or in their backyard, in their community, and that they need to respond to it. And then secondarily, if they don't, the city of Milwaukee will take the appropriate actions to address the sanitation needs in the city.
Another notice went out a couple of weeks ago. Color-coded informational tags were attached to garbage carts throughout the city, reminding residents of several changes in April, including the garbage set-out program.
As you know, every April we go into the curb set-out mode of garbage collection. In the winter, we collect all carts from the backyards or the storage points because our garbage trucks and our collection crews are our primary plows. So we can't guarantee a specific day of collection because of the snowfall. We go to the summer mode where people set it out and we designate a collection day. Basically, this impacts about half the people in the city. People who have alley collection, their carts are kept adjacent to the alley line year-round, so there's not as much of an impact for those folks as those who have driveways.
Nearly 100,000 households are affected by the summer hours in the set-out program, But everyone should check and hang on to the informational cards, which show new collection dates and how those dates can change.
It changes every time we have a holiday. For example, if your collection is Monday, starting in the first week of April, after Good Friday it would roll back to Tuesday, and after Memorial Day it would roll back again, so on and so forth. So we recommend that people keep this. I know I keep mine on my refrigerator all season so that I can refer to it. It lists people's collection day. They're color-coded for our sake so that our crews get them on the right collection day's work. And on the back we have a wealth of information on recycling, on collection, on self-help centers, hazardous waste, hours of operation. So this is a handy thing to keep in the home for the season.
Questions? Call the DPW Customer Service Center at 286-8282. Remember, you don't have to wait for the sanitation crews to come to your house. City of Milwaukee residents and property owners have 2 convenient self-service locations for disposal of such things as yard waste, rubbish, recyclables, and extra garbage. When you arrive at a self-help center, an attendant will meet you.
And they will ask you for some identification, be a driver's license that you are a City of Milwaukee resident, or again, if you are not a City of Milwaukee resident but own property in the City of Milwaukee and bring a material in from that property, all we ask you to bring is some proof, a tax bill, water bill, or something like that, so we know that you are own property in the City of Milwaukee. They can bring dirt and concrete up to a couple yards, remodeling material up to 2 yards. You can bring any white goods, what we call white goods, refrigerators, stoves, dryers, dishwashers, anything like that, microwaves, we take care of it. The hours for our summer will run through the weekend of Thanksgiving, and then we will be going back to our winter hours, and those hours will be posted later on.
Every year, the 2 self-help centers collect over 6,000 tons of materials. Curbside pickup of large appliances and larger quantities of branches and bulky items is available. City employees provide reliable and efficient garbage and recycling collection. We can all help them do their job, keep our city clean, and improve the quality of life. The Riverwest poster depicts a traditional Polish flat seen throughout the neighborhood. Development in the area begins along the Milwaukee River about 1851. John Orton, a lawyer from New York, decides to harness the power of the water. Tom Tolan's interest in Riverwest began 20 years ago when he wrote a manuscript as part of a UWM project. He's hoping to publish it soon in book form.
The first development in the area was up at about Capitol and Humboldt. It was a little dam and a mill, and around the mill they built a paper manufacturing company.
To house the workers from the mills along the river, a small village named Humboldt developed on the high ground west of the dam.
And then over the years there was flooding in the Milwaukee River and washed out the dam, and eventually that little town there became a ghost town.
By the late 1800s, the river was attracting Milwaukeeans who came to the area for recreation rather than work, and it changed from an industrial village to a warm weather Gold Coast with names like Eline.
A lot of the German aristocracy of Milwaukee filled in, bought summer homes along Humboldt Road.
The summer homes along what was then a plank road are gone. Homes of many architectural styles and sizes replaced them along Humboldt and in the surrounding neighborhood. The Northside German community spilled over into Riverwest in the late 1880s. One group established Jerusalem Lutheran Church at Holton and Chambers in 1883. It was the neighborhood's first church. A growing Polish population established St. Casimir Church at Clark and Bremen in 1893 and soon outnumbered the Germans. The Polish flat became popular as Poles moved from the Brady Street area north of the water reservoir they call the Green Hill.
And so they started filling in, they moved beyond the Green Hill into this neighborhood. They started building houses all through here, and they call this neighborhood Zagora, which means beyond the hill.
Houses in the Riverwest neighborhood generally span 4 decades of change in architectural styles from 1890 to 1930. The styles and sizes are thoroughly mixed in much of the area. Massive Victorian homes to small 19th century cottages, and everywhere the single-family home known as the Polish flat.
You know, people would put a little frame house on a piece of property, and these are really narrow lots. They not spend too much money on the lots or the house. And then after a while, the family got bigger, they got a little money in the bank. They jack it up and put in a basement underneath it and put another apartment in the basement. Or they bring a house and they build a house on the back of the lot. And so it's a very dense neighborhood, a lot of people around here.
The Riverwest neighborhood boundaries generally run from the river on the east to Holton Street on the west, from North to Keefe Avenues. Intensely urban in some areas, somewhat suburban in others, even a little wild along the waterway it's named for.
The river valley is really quite wild. You can find interesting flora and fauna that aren't you wouldn't expect to find in the city, and also an area of solitude, which is you wouldn't expect this close to downtown and this close to a high density neighborhood.
Riverwest is a high-density area, a neighborhood with a blend of cultures. It now includes many minority families, including African Americans and Hispanics, who joined the original ethnic groups in the 1960s.
If you ask people why they live here, it's because of the diversity and it's because of the affordability of the neighborhood.
Vince serves as strategic planning coordinator for the neighborhood. He and other residents would like to see more access to the river, to see Holton Street and other business districts become more attractive.
There's basic areas concerning public safety, which would be to try to reduce crime, planning for economic development, which would be more scattered site, like this building right here, rather than concentrations in large box development, particularly within the residential part of the neighborhood that are run by people who live here, which is the old model that the neighborhood originally had. This street, Clark Street, has a bunch of storefronts that are mostly turned into residential places. I'd like to rejuvenate some of these as some kind of commercial activity.
In addition to the wide range of architectural designs, materials, and sizes that you'll find in Riverwest, there are some other unique features. The neighborhood contains this architectural treasure, Milwaukee's last octagon house on Gordon Place. The Whitnall House, overlooking the river on Locust Street, constructed from 1851 through 1890. It is the original birthplace and home of Charles Whitnall, founder of the Milwaukee County Park System. Riverwest has a well-organized community of artists who have studios here and is home to many university students.
We're right across the river from UWM, and I think that partly because of that and partly sort of bleed over again from the Brady Street area, this became I'd say at least for a time, may still be the counterculture capital of Milwaukee. There's a real active artists group here.
It has a feeling of being bohemian, where there's a variety of activities occurring, a diversity of people and a diversity of recreational activities, including entertainment activities. So if you're looking for something a little bit more bohemian than what you'd find in some neighborhoods that are more well developed and higher in dollar tone, Riverwest has that, and again we would like to keep it that way.
If you want to see Milwaukee at its most diverse, Riverwest is among the neighborhoods to visit. You'll find that the Polish Falcons are still active here. There's a Puerto Rican influence along Holton Street. Some have called Riverwest a conglomeration, the city's own Greenwich Village. It is an interesting place.
It's just all these people living cheek and jowl. That's what I love about it most. You know, and I guess the fact that you don't live in Riverwest and put on airs. It's a home place. It's a very interesting place to live if you want to meet people from all walks of life.